loves pressing buttons.
He does.
I do love pressing buttons because when I press the button, it means we're recording, like we are now. So yeah, we're already talking. So welcome to 0 to 60. Again, joined by the reprobates that are the half man, half beanbag that is Liam Holden and the Demon Ranger himself, George Jones. How are we, gentlefolk?
Yo, George, we're gonna have to take over intros, man. This guy just does us a
He,
disservice. We're
he
gonna have to rip
does.
shit out of him,
He
man.
absolutely bullies us when it comes to these intros. But still, what can you say?
I mean, I know full well, and especially considering it's all about Ranger today, you have both done things which are reprehensible to other people.
This this is probably true, and I must say I'm excited to talk some Ranger because this is where it gets interesting. Who gives a shit about those other classes? They're all
And
rubbish.
George is happy. He's like slightly recruiting me over, which is
I
I
know.
didn't think it was gonna happen, but it's
Considering
happening.
Honestly,
at
the
one point
understatement
you
there is
said,
slightly.
at one point you said you would
Yes,
never play Azalea again because you hated her on a Levia tier of hate, or Rhinar from Tuesday because you also really enjoyed that, the amount of shit you were giving to the Fruit Ninja.
fuck
Um,
right now,
look, those blue leader charges were going to come in clutch at some
mate.
point.
He handed me a dodgy deck. I don't know what he fucking did with that shit.
Mate,
Fuck me.
he handed you a turd rolled in glitter. It's probably about the only thing we can say about that deck. But
But to be fair, you said you weren't going to play Azalea again, and today he was asking about how many Ranger cards he had in his binder.
he's my ranger deck is going to get pilfered by you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
My
yeah,
binder's going to
100%.
be empty.
I think you mean his Ranger deck.
Yeah, it's our ranger deck.
Our Ranger deck.
Yeah, but no, we've covered off our brand new assassins. We've covered off our old returning ninjas, and then we get a nice little split. No, sorry, ninjas, and now we've got our one returning ranger and one big bloaty ocean boy. Sorry,
Ocean
man.
Man.
Ocean man, sorry. I know you're very particular about what you call Riptide. So I don't think we need to cover Azalea. I think people were hoping we were going to get some sort of change to the wording. But she got a tool that kind of helps a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's
they
still
did it another way, which is okay, I think.
it's distinctly okay. I mean, but and I am going to leave the Ocean Man to Liam to introduce Mr. Riptide, Lurker of the Deep, and his younger self.
I mean, you just basically introduced him by saying his name. Anyway, this card,
I've said very little about him. I'm giving you the spotlight here, mate.
I think, I think Riptide's a very, very interesting hero, and I'm really
Oh
looking
yeah.
forward to doing a deep dive into this hero. The first line of text is super interesting because it feels like you can. Well, it's basically just good reload, right? This is what reload, how it should have been worded in the first place, in my opinion. I think it leans into like a really aggressive build or a value hand, so you can like deal 8 and block in 6. And then the second part of the text, I think, is super interesting to try and go into a controlling, more defensive trap build. Obviously, dealing damage only on triggers, so we'll get to in a bit, which some traps have specific text that have to line up for it to deal damage. But all three old traps do deal damage. Anyway,
Yeah. They've got to be played from your Arsenal. So for everyone playing along at home, if you're watching, you can also see the screen and all the cards. But we're not going to read out all the cards for you audio listeners, but we are just going to go through the cards that are on Fab TCG for the card gallery. But I absolutely love Riptide. I think there's going to be a bit like we said with Azuri. I think there's going to be a real mix in terms before people work out what the best build of him is. So I know people have gone aggro, people have gone control. I just love it.
Yeah, I think he might be the most diverse one that we're going to see in the early meta. Like, people are going to probably try and build him completely different things. Some will be trying to just fatigue everybody. Some will be trying to just go complete aggro, just abuse that top line of text and just play the buffs that basically have reload, and just spam people with bolt and shots. And then others, like I say, might try something in between. I'll be really intrigued to see where the best deck lands in this one because he obviously feels like a massive control trap ranger, but does he have the damage to kill people if he's built entirely that way? I don't know, and I don't know if he survives to the end game. It's an interesting one by all means.
It's sometimes how much you value the disruption. Still another one of Liam's lines. But because I think some of the traps are absolutely nutty depending who you're playing against, and one of them in
For
particular,
sure.
which I've got no doubt you will leave to me, because
Oh, oh yes,
everyone will be able to see the disappointment in my eyes and the hurt in
mate.
my heart.
As much as I'll always talk about anything Ranger, I think there's at least a couple on this list. I definitely want you to lead off with and Liam to lead off with, just because I know it hurts a bit.
Yeah, but Riptide, the big bloaty boy, I'm giving him a 4.5 actually. He seems really fun. I want to build. I want to build more.
Yeah, it's hard for me not to give this guy a 5, but I think I'm gonna go for a 4.5 for him.
If you want to go 5, George, you go 5. You do you.
Part of me does, but I don't know. Like I've played a little bit around with him. He's definitely interesting. He's some interesting design space, and he may well be a 5 at some point. But no, I think a 4.5 is where I'm going to settle on this one for now.
Yeah, I'll go 4.5. I think, like I said, I'm really looking forward to deep diving into this hero and see where he lands. It'd be really interesting.
He's an interesting puzzle, right? He's I think one of the most interesting deck building challenges I think I've done in a little while now. So
Yeah, for sure.
And even in the lore, I mean, we've got Arachne calls his blades his shinies. The bit, if you read the Spiders article, where he decides to just drop some traps from the ceiling, impaling people and yanking them into the air as they squirm, he decides to go squirm little fishies. The man's an absolute unit and a freak. That article, by the way, 100% go and recommend it. It's the first one they've ever had to do with a viewer discretion, as Mr. Minds pointed out. And
from what I hear, he's a patient fucker as well.
Oh, he's patient. that might have been one of the best reveal videos, by the way.
It really was.
That whole spiel. Oh,
DM Armada for the reveal for this was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, dude, you smashed it. But yeah, Lurker of the Deep is going to be fun, and I want to see how people build him. We've covered the Barbed Castaway. Kind of makes more sense in terms of his arrows that you're going to be playing a card. You can pay to flip it, put the aim counter on it if you so wish to do so, and lob it at someone.
Yeah, I think this bow makes a bit more sense now that we've seen Riptide. That top line of text makes this a lot more playable than I was anticipating originally. I'm not sure again. I think when we first covered this, I'm not sure if this replaces Death Dealer for Azalea, and it just doesn't. I don't think for me. But for Riptide, this with the top line of text, the ability to put something in Arsenal face down, yeah, it does feel genuinely good. And I think it would be my bow of choice for him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were kind of trying to wonder whether this is what Azalea was going to have to run to be able to get aim counters, because she wants to use Death Dealer, but also we'll come on to the Crow's Nest and some of the quivers that I think we're the genuine surprise of this. But I think Balcasway just gets a 3 for me.
Yeah,
3.
I think a 3.5. It ended up being better than I anticipated it to be. I don't think it's amazing, but I was a little pleasantly surprised after playing it Riptide. Though maybe even the aggro versions of him want Death Dealer. You can't really underestimate a card draw.
Now, I'll let George cover off the next two, because Ranger got 2 L's, and neither of them are headpieces. George, you must be buzzing.
Yeah, no, I'm not, am I? Let's be honest. So, anyway, yes, I guess we'll start with the Trenches Shrunken Treasure. I must say, when I first saw this card, massively underwhelmed. You look at this in comparison to other legendaries, and I think it just doesn't stack up for me. One blade break, AB, okay, sure, it's fine, but the effect pretty much just giving you a card from your arsenal for 1 resource. Now, I mean, we've all seen Crown of Seeds that gives you a whole card, which normally is 2 resources floating with it. So this doesn't really feel like it stacks up to that kind of level of legendary at all. But after actually playing this, I think I came around a bit, and I think Liam, you're with me on this one. But I think this to me is probably an absolute necessity if you're going to play a control version of Riptide. This just allows you to cycle the card that you were not planning. You can't really play the trap that you haven't used or anything else. Just allows you to cycle it out of your arsenal and tuck it away, giving you a resource, whether it be your turn or theirs. If you want the resource for an instant or something like that. It has some utility, and I think in that deck alone, I can definitely see utility. I'm not sure I've seen anything outside of that. How do you guys feel about this?
I think I I was obviously not as down as on the equipment as you was originally. I think having played with it, I see its uses in Riptide for sure. I think the versatility of putting your arsenal away on their turn to pay for armor, maybe like a brothers in arms
Hmm.
or an
Hmm.
oasis respite to defend well with to go along with a trap, or on your turn just to get rid of your arsenal and then use the one cost to either use the Bowcastaway to load the arrow or play the buff with Riptide, put the Riptide in the arrow face down, and use the one cost to flip a zero cost arrow to give it an aim counter and fire it. I think it's very versatile, but I also like the AB that's printed on it.
Yeah, for sure. That's nice to have.
I
By
mean,
all means,
I think with the
go for
AB
it.
thing, because obviously Ranger can present AB2 using the bullseye braces and cross wraps. I assume you're not running cross wraps in this. I assume you're going to stick with New Horizon.
Yeah, I think people have been pretty divided actually for some reason on Riptide having New Horizon. I can't really see much of a reason why you wouldn't. But I know it's been a bit of a one. Some people are all over it. Some people are not so keen.
But going back to the trench, I feel like I'd give it like a 3, maybe 3.5. Because I feel like it's gonna have some utility. It is gonna see play, and it is. I think for me, whether you're gonna see more value out of a tunic than this in the long term. Obviously, the fact it's got AB, but obviously it's gonna have blade breakers, ranger. Whew.
Ranger,
We've
yeah,
co-
thank
we've
you
done,
very
we've
much.
we've done a lot of talking, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I must admit, it's been a bit of a roller coaster on this one. I think when it first revealed, I'd have given it a 1, but I was then a bit hard to run it, and now I've kind of cooled on it again slightly. I do think it's a necessity for Riptide, but I would still probably give it about a 2 because for a legendary, this still seems poor.
Well, you say that, and I've never seen. I would say I've never seen you
To
more
be fair,
underwhelmed when you saw
to be
this.
fair, I before that, I do think did Liam? Do you give this one a rating yet?
No, he didn't. I
I,
don't think he did.
I'll give it a 3. You know, Brooks is cutting me out.
He is. He's trying to silence you, mate. He's trying to censor you. Don't let him.
Well,
It's,
I just usually take all his opinions he's already told and just repeat them anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Right, whatever.
You've
true.
already said his opinion, so
Yeah.
he doesn't need to say it. And also he was only going to say it's good.
Yeah. Card mediocre. That's it. Card okay. Um, but no, I would say I've never seen you more underwhelmed than when you saw the trench, and at that point, I think that's true. And I think it's probably the weakest L we'd seen in a long time. Until about an hour later,
Yeah,
and you got your next Ranger L.
yeah. L might be generous. I think the hype leading into this one as well, that this was going to be some big game changer was a little bit unfounded, shall we say? Um, the equivalent of Abyssal Depths is a huge disappointment to me, to be honest. It may actually be my least favorite quiver, apart from maybe Riptide's one, which we'll come to. But it's close between the two of them, honestly. And despite this one being the legendary, the only positive thing I can possibly say about this particular quiver is it makes me like quiver rustling leaves more. Which I think if you've heard me talk about that one in the previous podcast, it wasn't a lot. So yeah, I was deadly disappointed in this one. This one's honestly a 1 for me.
I'd give it a little bit more credit than that because the art is also pretty cool. Although why tentacles fit into and abyssal depths fit with this, I don't know. But it's kind of got a bit of a
To,
piratey
to,
nautical theme.
to counter that argument, no doggo.
There is no doggo, so it's not getting an extra point. But I do kind of like it. But I mean, I saw some serious takes that I disagreed with in our Discord channel.
Yeah, that's pretty
It,
standard though.
yeah. I mean, sorry to everyone on our Discord. But paying 3 for a worse version of Remembrance, it's just bad. And what if you're doing that? Do you have to destroy it? I mean, I suppose you do, but
Yeah, but
just
also like,
no.
why does it have to be 3 different arrows? Why
Yeah,
can't I take my 3 endless
exactly.
arrows and shuffle them back in? Why isn't this just remembrance on there? Why do I have to pay 3 for it? Like, would it be so broken for a class without a weapon that could attack to have the ability to recur 3 attacks for free? Like, just a normal copy of Remembrance could.
I mean,
Um,
I've got if it either you pay 3 as a price to do it, but it didn't destroy itself, so you could just keep doing it, or make it free and destroy it. I don't know. It's still crap. I
I-
mean,
it's terrible. Yeah,
whatever they're
there's so
drinking.
much design space they could have done with quivers, and this is not what I was dreaming of or hoping of in the slightest.
I mean, whatever they're drinking down in Swindon to think this is good. I think I want some of that stuff.
It probably would be good. It's a shame. Like I just I can't see this being
Yeah.
impactful. I'd love to be wrong. Maybe I'm missing something glaring about it. But for
Yeah.
me, I can't see where this is coming from.
But I mean, if anyone thinks that we've missed anything, alongside the like, subscribe nonsense that people tell you to do, tell us what we've missed. Because I cannot see a redeeming factor myself. Don't know why you'd run it over. Outside the fact, I don't know what range is running this. Does Lexi want this? Probably not.
I wouldn't. I mean, I've played a lot of fatigue into a lot of fatigue with Lexi, and this, if anything, probably screws up your attempt at pitch stacking an endless turn or anything like that. Or just trying to set up these big turns, it just screws that up when you try and activate it. The fact that it's 3 different arrows is huge because you can't go and pick your big impact ones like we were saying before. It's your big ones normally being like endless and things like that. You can't just go and pick all three of those like you can
Like,
and it's also limited to arrows. You can't go and pick out your buffs or anything else if you want to take a mix like you can with Remembrance.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a big miss for me. I don't think I'd want it even for a Lexi deck because as much as it's a free piece of equipment, as people like to say, it takes up a sideboard spot.
For
Rate it.
me, come on, Brooke, stop cutting me out here, man.
Go on. You got your minute.
For me, to be fair, for once, I've been trying not to keep my answers short. This one's gonna be short. This card's shit. It's a 1.
That's
That's all I wanted to say.
Fair enough.
Honestly, I rated the last one low, and because it's a legendary, this one is rated low, regardless of whether it was a legendary. If this was an M, I'd say it's a 1.
I think if you could give this a 0, George, you would. In fact, you can give it a 0 if you do want to.
To be fair, I think
Yes.
last time we discussed this, yes, I gave it a 0, and yeah, I stick with that.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 1. But like I say, I think I'd rather run the quiver of rustling leaves. And if you're playing as Azalea, I don't see why you'd ever not run Crow's Nest instead.
Just Crow's Nest, yeah. I mean, like I say, yeah, 0 is probably inflammatory for that, but I that was mainly from disappointment, and I stick by it. But yeah, I would sooner run the others by all means.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you mentioned the Driftwood Quiver as well.
Yeah, Driftwood. I'm not sure about Driftwood. I don't know what you guys think on this one. I think it is purely a limited piece. Um, the I could see it being necessary for Riptide when you end up with a hand clogged with defense reactions, or you stuck with one in Arsenal and in turn you thought they were going to attack again and they just passed. Your Arsenal's full, so you can't fire arrows past it. So you just activate the Driftwood Quiver, cycle the card. My only thing is why does it destroy itself? Why can you not have this ability on tap? I don't know why you just get one of these. It seems
Yeah, it's
strange to
quite.
me.
It is very strange, especially when Azalea's Crow's Nest isn't. It is on tap.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were trying some Azalea games earlier, Liam. You were asking me, I was like, "Wait, does Crow's Nest not break?" I was like, "No, this thing sticks. This is always here." It's for some reason just all of the other quivers that blow themselves up when you activate them.
I feel like it just doesn't feel very thematic. I mean, your quiver just sticks on your back or on your hip. They don't blow up, or the arrows get used up out with them, but that's it. They don't disappear.
Yeah, none of them really feel like they do what Quiver should do. I suppose Quiver of the Abyssal Depths is trying to go for that idea, but yeah, none of them really seem to have hit the mark for me for thematically quivers. Crow's Nest is very cool. I do like Crow's Nest. But it is kind of their way of getting around errataing Azalea's hero text, I think.
Yeah, that's true. What would you
just a bit of a shame.
what would you rate them? Crow's Nest and Driftwood.
I mean,
And
Crow's Nest.
If you want.
Sure, go on. For me, I'm going to go 3 for Crow's Nest. I'm going to go 1 for Driftwood Quiver. Not that I don't think it's necessary. I think you've got to have it for limited. If you are playing in CC, you're probably just going to need to have Trench to do the same job, but it gives you a resource. If you don't and you're trying to do Quiver, you've got to be so careful about what you put in that arsenal if you're running a defensive build. So, but apart from that, it just should be a permanent that stays. And yeah, so I think I'd give that a 1. Rustling Leaves, a 2.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Crow's Nest is 3. Driftwood, I'm not quite as I think 1.5, just 'cause I actually think Abyssal's worse, and I gave that 1.
I give
Um,
that a 0. So it opened up more space for
yeah, yeah,
myself.
it's true you did, and and the other thing is that they're both tokens, so at least you don't have to draft them.
That is true. Yeah, that's
So
nice.
you
At least
just
I do
get them
like
for
that.
free. You don't have to just actually choose one of these as a pick. Quiver Rustling Leaves 2.
Rustling Leaves 1.5, Driftwood 1.5. I'm gonna put Crow's Nest at 3.5. When I've been playing Azalea, I've been really impressed with this card. I've been really, I don't know why. It's just such a simple design, but yet being able to just get your aim counters on the like you when you Azalea with arrows is like a neat bonus. I think I
It is
like it.
nice. I think I would have sooner just maybe seen it that it was maybe you could have had some interaction with the hand as well. It's a bit of a shame that Azalea can't get encounters apart from getting them from the top of the deck, and then that in fact you have to pay for it as well is kind of a little bit I think, but I do like it. It's very good.
And then it wouldn't be a Ranger. It wouldn't be a set with Ranger unless you got another headpiece as well. Wayfinder's Crest just seems like sort of draft fodder to me.
100% right. But I think it's a pretty good draft pick.
Mm.
Also interesting that they seem to be going with these sorts of cards. I think there's some later that we'll talk about in the generic set, but they allow you to look at the top of target heroes deck, which is interesting. But I mean, this is a great pick for Azalea. You know, I don't think Riptide cares for this apart from the one block. But for Azalea, like knowing what's on top of your deck is great.
And it's nice it's an effect that, like I say, it's actually on. You can defend with it and get the benefit out of it at least, which
Yeah, for sure.
oftentimes it's just blade break and you can't get the effect. So
Yeah, particularly in a set with Benji, like it feels nice to be able to get both the effect and the block.
yeah.
Don't feel like you have to choose when you're facing him. So I like this a lot for draft.
Let's go into some of these M's, shall we? Because you get a couple more, because there's a few more unique cards in here.
Hmm.
Amplifying Arrow. I think it's an interesting kind of tool. It's going
Yeah,
to take a bit of playing around with.
interesting design space by all means. I'm not sure that it's quite on the curve that I want it to be. Like considering this is just flat damage, this feels like maybe it should be at home in a Voltaire build because you get like 2 instead of 1, but only puts it to a 0 for 4. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this one. Maybe Azalea wants to play it because you play multiple buffs on the same arrow, but then at the same time, again, it's just damage, which maybe you can get it to a high enough amount. Maybe these things add up, and before you know it, you're firing some arrow for 20. No one would ever do that, like right, Liam. But at least with this, maybe it's good enough. I just haven't quite worked it out yet
Yeah,
whether it's good enough.
if you look at some of the buffs and if you read them as 0 for 4s or 0 for 3s, you'd say they're pretty good. But the amount of
Mhm.
buffs you have to get, I don't know why this has to be a base 2. That's the
That's
thing
I think
that
the thing for me.
astounds me about this.
It's not quite on the right curve for me with the 0 for 2.
Yeah.
If this was a 0-3 or began with a 4, consider it's a majestic,
Yeah.
would it be okay? Maybe.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't seem to fit with the pit's theme with the rest of it. It feels very out of place art-wise.
Yeah, it feels very TOA art wise, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really do much for me. Very vanilla. Cool design. I like the art if it was in TOA. Like I still like the art, but it just doesn't feel like it doesn't belong here. It's very simple too, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably a 2 right now. I can't really see it being something that I'm rushing to play.
I'll go a little bit high. Maybe just completely middle of the road at 2.5. Just because there might be some shenanigans. And I like shenanigans.
That's fair.
Well,
On to the next one.
speaking of shenanigans, Barbed Undertow.
Mm.
I mean, we said it in our episode about assassins. You know, this idea of red, yellow, and blue being being a bit more impactful and actually you doing something to disrupt that. Barbed Undertow really hits that, and I think this is a great arrow.
Yeah, it's a real nice one. I mean, it's a mean looking arrow as well. To be fair, looking at this artwork, I wouldn't want to be hit by that bloody thing. But yeah, this is real nasty. The only thing is obviously it's got to have an aim counter, or it's just a generic 1 for 5. bit of a shame. I'm kind of fan of myself for the arrows that are split. So that, like, if it has an aim count, it has this. If it doesn't, it still has another effect. And for a majestic, I'd kind of like to have something just on it, even if it was just a plus. It was just a +1 or so. It wasn't at the 1 for 5 rate, something like that. Would have been nice just to make it a little bit better. But the on hit effect is fantastic. So I mean, for me, this is probably still a 3.5. I think I've called on this one a little bit myself after it underperforming a little for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, George. I think at first I probably would have given this like a 4.5, and the
Same.
more we tested with this, the more it didn't really hit the mark for us both. So I think I'm cooling down on it as well. I think the design space is really cool again, but I think 3.5, maybe even a 3 for me
Yeah,
is where I'd settle.
I'm reticent to make it that low just because I think maybe we were obviously playing Azalea at the time, and I think this is probably more of a Riptide card. If you're playing Barbed Castaway, I could see the aim count being more consistent, so you're probably getting that effect more often. This is obviously only irrelevant on the hit when with Azalea when you Azalea it into your arsenal.
What you found that it was underperforming it? Either it wasn't hitting, it wasn't getting, weren't able to get the right colour, or
It's
you
the
have to
lack
play
of
around it.
being able. It's the lack of being able to get the aim counter on the arrow. I think because it is just a vanilla 1 for 5 in Azalea most of the time.
And a vanilla for 1 for 5 is pretty terrible. Kind of regardless of the range that you're playing. I think when we come to one of the commons down here later, that is essentially just a vanilla 1 for 5. It's just not enough. It doesn't threaten enough extra damage to make it worth it. And this being a majestic, when it hits that so far below rate, it feels rough. This should be your big impact, high impactful card that you want, and then when you can't get an aim counter on it, it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, because I'd still happily give it a 3.5 because I want to test it, but I do also take into account obviously you guys have tested this, and I love the idea of hitting this into someone like a drone. No pitching reds. All right, well you can't pitch for anything. No dragon go against. Well, you can still attack with zeros, I guess, but.
Oh, when this comes off, right? Like you hit an Icelander that's just flashed in a channel like Frigid and declared blues. They're probably not keeping that around anymore. By all means, it's got a lot of potential, a lot of impact. Like I say, what maybe in a Riptide build, I think it might perform a bit better for myself, but at the moment, it hasn't really been living up.
So I assume you want to see me get depressed at the next card, don't you?
Go on. Yeah, you might as well cover this one because I think you'll probably have the strongest opinion on it.
Yeah, Buzzsaw Trap's an absolute stain.
There we go. That's it. Done.
It's why this exists when I like to swing a Dawnblade at someone's face, because the Dawnblade with one counter is always going to trigger this. And I also do this from a more Dawnbladey perspective. But if I buff my Dawnblade to 12, it has 3 counters on it. This one card effectively strips all of my counters, removes all effectively remove on hits. It's not going to hit. It's a fucking good trap. I mean, how he's built that. I mean, some patience to build that, and an idiot fisherman's get caught by it because it doesn't seem very innocuous. But yeah, this feels like depending on the hero, this could be a 5-star card because it literally just removes all the tempo for literally one card.
Yeah, I think this is an incredible trap, right? I can see why this one in particular had to be a legendary one of in the deck trap, because I've seen this trap do some ridiculous things. When I've been playing some Azalea, I did I think it was actually a game I watched, to be fair, but I did see somebody lose 11, 12 damage to this because the arrow was originally 4. They'd buffed it multiple times. It was coming in for well above. They put one piece of armor block in front of it and then reacted with this and bought the whole thing out for 4. And I've never seen a card like that block 12 damage.
This is like the old version of Briar level blocks potentially, with like
even that didn't block like this, right? Like a card we were saying, a card then would block 5, 6. That's crazy, which it is. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that this in the right scenario, and it has to be in the right scenario.
I mean, I give this like
a block.
I think I'm gonna go for a 4. Liam, what are you thinking about this card?
Oh, this is a 4.5. This card's an absolute powerhouse. I fucking love this card. This has got me written all over it. I can't wait cannot wait for you to swing a dong blade for like 15, and you're like, I finally get there, buzzsaw trap. I'll just watch you walk out of the room crying.
I wouldn't walk out. I think I'd literally just lie face down and like almost like worm crawl my way out because I just don't want to see anything.
Yeah, 4.5 for me as well.
I think, like I say, I think I'm just slightly lower on it purely on the basis that I know this is going to hurt when it hits me. Collapsing trap we've covered off. I still really enjoy this. Would have made a difference in the some of the matches where people are banishing. They've got one card, chosen the modes in Art of War. You banish their one card they've got left and no cards to banish. Sorry, don't draw unless you're in New Zealand, where you just draw 2 anyway.
Now.
No, calm down, Brooksy.
It's one of those shit happens in games.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to say on Collapsing Trap though, right? I think for me it's a 4. It's slightly worse than Buzzsaw, I think, but on the whole, it's a great trap.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to get a better trap than Collapsing Trap, and Buzzsaw came out, so Collapsing Trap gets a 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a 4 of this. I really like the effects, and obviously you have to hit the go again to get the trigger, and then you get the 1 damage. So if you start hitting the right things, these traps really do start chipping away.
And the fact they're all blue as well.
Yeah, all blue, and I mean, obviously they'll block 3. I mean, they could have blocked 4, I guess, but maybe that's a bit too good.
I mean, they also ping for a damage if you activate them.
Yeah,
which
so I
is
suppose
pretty
it's worth 4.
So the fact that I take away like 12 damage from you on your Dawnblade, plus also just ping you for 1, great.
I don't care about the 1 at that point. Depression's already kicked in. And then we get the Spike Pit Trap. Probably the one I'm lowest on of the 3 M's.
Yeah, this one's slightly under par for me. I'd probably put this as a 3. I think it's a cool effect, and sometimes you're probably going to kill someone getting lucky, like against, I don't know, like if Icelander plays a Wounded Bull, right, and you spike off a like an Ice Vein, and they got like 6 copies in the deck. It's kind of funny, but it ain't gonna happen often. So
they would have had to have activated a reaction for that as well.
That's also true again. So there you go. So that example is just completely useless.
Yeah, I think the thing for me with this one, and it's a running theme across some of the traps we're going to cover soon, is that I think all the ones with the idea of when they've like activated or played a reaction is just a bit hard to get off consistently. And I think that's the limit in one of this one. I like the effect though. The fact that this can always kill from 1 is just pretty good. Always kill from 2, I should say, because obviously it's going to ping them for 1 damage if you activate the effect, and then the card's going to hit them. So obviously it's like kind of reckless swing sort of lethal range there, which is quite nice.
I don't know. It also just feels like targeted Dory hate again, which again
it is very good into Dory as well. Well, she nearly cut it down to size, mate.
Yeah, she was a powerhouse in the meta at the moment.
She was, obviously.
She's won too many events. She's nearly LL, don't you know? I'd 3.5. It's not terrible, but I think it's a bit more niche than the other 2.
Yeah, I think given that I gave the other one a 4, I think a 3.5 is fair. This is the weakest.
Yep, agreed.
Last M, Melting Point. It seems very target. I mean, actually, it's obviously it hits your Kodachis, it hits your Assassin Daggers. It's not bad.
The big attractive point of this is it fucking blocks 3.
I was going to say you beat me to it, mate. This is a dream come true just because it's an on-rate buff that blocks 3. I can defend. I don't even care that it's red. I don't care that I don't care what the extra aim counter text is. This gives me an effect and blocks 3. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I love it. It's great.
I mean, I've not really got much more to add to it, to be honest. +4, good. Cool
Effect
on hit.
Sometimes relevant.
Block 3. Give it a 3.5. Maybe a 4.
I'll give it a 4. And versus Ninja 4.5.
Yeah, I'm on the same page
And
on
Assassin.
that one, Liam. I like it a lot.
True.
Yes. Yeah. And it's an interesting little bit of interplay with some of the stuff that I think we see come up in the hybrid when we cover that later.
Then we get a couple more traps. We get Boulder, we get Pendulum, we get Tar Pit. Again,
Boulder trap.
Boulder's nasty in the same way that almost like you fire your drill shot, just putting a -1. The fact that it just triggers though, and like there's no interplay with this. They can't stop you doing it. Like you can't block this. It just happens.
This is a stain of a trap.
This is. I'm so ready to play this on a Titan's Fist. I really am. Just to put that -1 on a rampart, it's going to feel so good.
Oh, the pain.
Titans Fist for 4.
Oh, they will regret
Take-
pitching a 3 cost. They really will.
Deal 1. Lose your shield.
Also, I will, even if it's not a Titan's Fist, I'll take getting pummeled to
Yeah.
play this to take your Rampart. I 100% will.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Especially then if you're also just ping for 1 as well. But I think all of these traps, I think Boulder's probably the standout for me. The other 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a big fan of Tar Pit as well.
Okay.
I think when we talked about this one before, I think I described this, and I stick with this to some extent. Of this is snatch, like the answer to Snatch. It's so perfect.
More skies.
And more skies. But yeah, for me, it's just mainly with Snatch is that you don't give a damn about Snatch until they have go again. At least normally. Sure, might come up occasionally that they just want it for the Arsenal. But the moment they activate Snapdragon Scalers is when the Snatch becomes threatening, and that's when this just turns it off.
Yeah. Also
entirely.
nice if someone tries to raise or something, you get the +3, but it's on hit, go again. That's now gone.
So yeah, same answer. So it's
I
nice.
think the whole set, I'm quite happy to give them probably 3s, maybe 3.5s against the right opponent.
Yeah,
I think Boulder Trap gets a 4.
I think 4 for Boulder, 3.5 for Tar Pit for me, and a 3 for the Pendulum. Maybe even a little low for the Pendulum Trap, honestly. Not a massive fan of Pendulum.
But I think Pendulum Trap also probably gets the award for some of the nastiest art as well. Like that thing is visceral.
Yeah, that's the word for it. To be fair, it's brutal.
Yeah, there's no misconstruing what's just happened to that fella. I think
What's
this
left
one.
of him anyway?
Yeah. Well, I think this is some of the more interesting stuff. I mean, we've said there's like red, yellow, blue, and I think this is the first time we've ever seen red, yellow, and blue cards of the same card have different art.
Yeah, I think so. This is a really nice, interesting piece of design space. I think in 2 ways with the Fletcher red, yellow, and blue tails. Just in terms of that, we've seen obviously a card that cares about the color of other cards. The fact that, like you say, the change in artwork to reflect that as well. I think it's really interesting, and it helps as well that the card's really quite good. I've been a bit of a big fan of this one. The +4 on rate. And then the aim counter effect is really impactful. I think particularly at red and blue. I think are really really good. Blue in fatigue matchups where your opponent is probably is obviously going to be thinning their deck down to blues. All of a sudden, those blocking for 2 or 1 is a big impact.
Yeah, I think this is probably more of a Riptide card than an Azalea card because of the aim counter. Because we found we're taking this out a little bit too much, so we decided to actually swap it for a different card entirely in your Azalea deck, as it also ours.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe it comes out a little bit too much.
But if you block 3, different card altogether.
It'd be an easy include at that point. I just think without the consistency of the aim counter, like you say, I think it probably doesn't do quite enough for the 1 cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets a 5 for me just from a flavour standpoint, but then actually for an effect, fairly unique. Like the interaction, probably give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I think I'm around about that. I was close to a 4, but I think I've cooled on it slightly to about a 3.5.
We got. I guess we can bundle these together in terms of we get a bit like we had with Assassin, where they had their stealth attack that was 3 on hit, gives a token and a reaction, which gives one of the tokens. We get the lace with token, and we get the shots that go with each one. I really like. I think we said it on the previous ones. Really, really like the blood pox, and I guess Liam, you can tell us a small story about some of your testing with this.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think Infecting Shot is by far my actual favourite card of this set, which I never thought I'd say. It's an arrow.
I don't think you'd say that either.
I wouldn't have expected that.
Lace with Blood Rot is probably like close to my second favourite card of this set, which is, again, never thought I'd say that. But yes, I did fire a 15 dominated Infected Shot with 2 Lace with Blood Rots.
And so 15 dominate on hit, 3 Blood Rots.
Yes, and it was also on a premeditate, which drew me a card that created me a ponder token. So it was basically 21 dominate, draw a card.
That's absolutely disgusting.
I was saying this to George before when we were playing. Like, infecting shot is like it feels like the best card just to rip off Azalea, right? So you load in an arrow called Spy Cyping, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Mm.
You see the infected shot, you rip that off, you buff it, and you can just start the game basically your opponent on 30. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
I fucking love this card.
The card's pretty nuts, right? I think I remember telling you guys this when we first kind of saw it. That it's just a ridiculous rate for a card, right? Like the fact that you get the +1 as well, I think makes the blue incredibly playable. The fact that it's like a 1 for 4, but you've got the aim that then hits for 6.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really solid rate for a blue. And then obviously, like you say, the red is unbelievable once you start buffing it, particularly and pushing it over breakpoints.
So what would you go for the infecting the pox token kind of packaging? So you can obviously
5.
give 5. Is it 5 for blood rot and then the same for inertia and frailty, or is it a little bit lower than the others?
I think
It's a bit.
I think the other two
lower,
are. Yeah, I think Blood Rot is more universally great against every hero. I think Frailty and Inertia have their time to shine. So I think I'd actually put them at 4.5 because I think they are still brilliant. But I think the Blood Rot package is just a 5 for me. It's so good. And the art on Lace with Blood Rot is nuts.
It is absolutely grim, isn't it? Like I say, that poor guy in the earlier one for Assassin, I think that's getting it poured on him. This is probably where he ended up with it, dripping out over an arrow.
So an Assassin just pours some sort of shit all over this guy to give him this, and then he gets turned upside down and used like a poison frog.
Yeah, I don't think he was alive at this point either, by the looks of it. So
well, I don't know, he might be.
He might be. You never know. But no, I think for me, I think the lace with then the infected shots are like a 4.5 easy. They're fantastic cards. I think they then go down a little bit. Inertia a little bit less useful, less often, so probably a 4, and then a 3.5 for the frailty, which only has certain matchups. But when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah,
you will hate frailty tokens, by the way, Brooks. Dawnblade for 2 is sad.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that one, George. I think I'd say 5 for the blood rots. I agree with Liam. It's just I think the on hit. I think the whole thing is just nasty. No one's going to want to get multiple. Probably go inertia 4, frailty 3.5. But generally speaking, I love the package and I love the fact you can still mix and match some of the arrows. Whether you want to do some of them together, probably not if you're doing like inertia and blood rot, because they're probably going to just pitch the cards anyway. We got a couple of last arrows. I think we've got our Falcon Wing, the kind of go again arrow. We've got Murkmire.
Yeah, I think Falcon Wing could be a quick one. It's okay. It's a bit of draft piece, right? Go again arrow's nice to put in Arsenal. It's like a 2.5 for me, maybe a 2.
Yeah, it's a bit middling for me, 2.5, because it's the sort of thing, if it ends up stuck in your arsenal, you don't mind just letting loose with this, because you're not using up your action point. You've still got your bow to fire, but you're not going to be excited about firing a 0 for 3 or even 0 for 4.
I don't expect to see this in constructed. I think draft, sure. I'll probably draft some red ones, but yeah, like you say, it's a bit dire outside of that. So it's very, very low too.
Very underwhelming. Definitely a 2.
Murkmire. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Again, it's a bit middle of the road for me.
Yeah,
very middling.
0 for, assuming you put an aim counter at 0 for 5. And I don't think any of these are particularly excite me too much. I mean, I give probably a 2, maybe a 2.5.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Like the text is barely relevant. It's maybe you find your opponent stuck with an Oasis, but most of the time it's probably still not relevant. It's with the other cards, but still, the effect isn't probably going to be that relevant at all. And it's not even that good on rate, because if you're in Azalea particularly, you're paying for that aim token, which makes it kind of a 1 for 5 anyway. So not excited. It's about a 2 as well for me. I think I don't think it's much better than the Falcon Wing, if at all.
I agree.
Skybound shot.
Most
vanilla of arrows.
Yeah, it's vanilla as vanilla can get. I mean, it's literally just worse sedation, infecting, and withering shot, right? I mean, it's literally the same card without the second line of text.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that they've printed this. Like,
Could it have,
considering there's just literally next to it is just a better version,
yeah, could it have not have been a
an
one
extra
for
one.
6?
Yeah.
Like just a 1 for 6 with +1 with an aim. At least then I could say it's slightly better, and I can push it over a breakpoint.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand the utility of this card in the slightest.
Yeah.
Particularly when the others are at common rarity as well. Even if one of them, even if the others were rare or something like that, I could be like, well, at least I'll see more of these. I'm going to pick the inconsistency, but no, it's just not good.
I'm actually going to give this a 1 because I just
Uh,
do not understand its presence when you've got every other arrow is effectively better.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you entirely. I think this is a 1 for me.
I'll go 1.5, just to be different.
Fair enough.
And
Now this one, I would love to take a bit of Spire sniping if you don't mind, because this has been overperforming for me like crazy. I love this card.
really,
Yeah, this card is really good. Really good. I mean, the ability to load this into Arsenal and look at the top 2 cards of your deck in Azalea is absolutely spectacular. Because even at the blue, this is an arrow that you can load and never want to fire. And I think this has been single-handedly, well, at least in a combination with a couple of other effects. But this is part of what's been tipping us over the edge, I think, from getting turn 0 dominates consistently.
yeah. Because I know we spoke about it's bad. It's like a bad opt because obviously you can't put onto the bottom. But I suppose it really adds to your consistency of actually Azalea in.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. Oh, sorry, go for it, Liam.
No, you go for it, George. Go on.
I was going to say there's some anti-synergy, I think, with like the way that Skullbone cross wraps interacts with it, because you get this and then you get the cross wrap opt, and you obviously can't necessarily see more cards that way. But still, just being able to do this off the bow, very good. It's probably not going to see out like any outside of Azalea. It's an Azalea card, I think, almost through and through. But actually, the card's just been super consistently really good. It's good for seeing out at the end of a game because you can load it and just see the rest of the, see the next 2 cards. So yeah, this one has been massively outperforming what I expected, and is I think solidly secured itself in my Azalea list at red and blue.
So when you do this when using Skullbone Crosswrap, you can choose to opt first, right, and then use this?
I'm not entirely sure. I suppose that'll be something for the release notes, but currently I do not believe that's how Talishara got it implemented. There is an order to the
yeah, I couldn't remember. I'm not sure which order. If you let Skullbone Crosswrap resolve in its entirety and then it triggers
I think,
Spire
unfortunately,
sniping.
it's the worst way. I think it's the less desirable way of Spire sniping triggers and then Skullbone Crosswrap. So you see the 2 and then see the 1, which obviously you want to see the 1, have the chance to bottom it, and then see the 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I think it's the other way around.
I mean, you do need an anti-synergy or 2 in Ranger, otherwise it'll...
Exactly. Otherwise it stops feeling like Ranger.
Yeah.
But, because you've been doing this a lot recently, Brooks, I think Liam was trying to say something a while ago, and we just completely shut him out.
No, I was just going to say how much I actually agree with you, George, on this. As someone who's... Obviously, I'm not like the most... I don't play Ranger a lot, but having testing your list today, like this card kind of ups the consistency on Azalea's dominate slightly, because it kind of gives you a pseudo cost wrap on the load rather than if you don't have an Arsenal already.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you can just by seeing, like, if you don't see an arrow, right, you can just fire the Spire Snipe, and it's not horrendous. But I think if you can load and you have bus in your hand and you see relevant arrow on top, it just ups your consistency and allows Azalea to
and I also
be that nuisance that she wants to be.
I also think, like, if this had been released a set ago or a little bit longer, it probably wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't feel as good because now we've got so many more buffs that apply on hits and relevant on hits, like the Blood Rot Pox, even Inertia, things like that. It feels better to even if you are stuck with firing this, if you see one of these offer dominate, it doesn't feel terrible. I think it does offer you something, which is nice. So yeah, and even if you flip it with Skullbone Crosswrap, sometimes you get to see what you're going to draw off Death Dealer. So I don't know. Like I said, this card's just been overperforming by me for some way, and I'm a big fan.
Even to the point where we were talking before about dropping Eye of Ophidia.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And I think it could be, because unfortunately that obviously has its drawbacks when you see it. Sometimes you draw it off a ponder, and you ask that anyway in Azalea because you still get the opportunity to cycle it. It's not terrible, but it's still not good. But yeah, I think this can allow you to have that option to potentially do that. And like I say, for me, yeah, sure, it's not the most flashy card in the world, but it's definitely a 4.
I agree. 4.
I'm willing to go with the consensus on this one. I mean, you kind of convinced me that, and like I say, at first looked at it and thought it'd be nice if it just said opt 2, but do you know if you just look at the top 2 and you get that couple of points consistency, you'll take that all day, especially even makes,
Yeah,
especially on the blue.
I'd have liked it to be an opt 2, of course, but I can't complain over what it is in the form it's in.
Yeah. So our last card for Ranger is the Widowmaker. Feels very. Once you pointed out the kind of the bottom line of text to me on this, and the slightly sad thing about it, I really dropped on how hot I initially was in this when I first read it
Yeah,
incorrectly.
it's a cool card, right? I really like the look of it, and everything. The art's quite cool, and everything else. And I love the bottom line of text is so close to being good. Why in the world it just doesn't have the same as Barraging Beatdown, where if it doesn't say non-equipment cards, if it did, this arrow would be fantastic. It'd be really really amazing. Um, I think the big thing for me here is that in limited, this works as intended because none of the equipment can be put on the combat chain unless it has blade break. So once you've earned their armor, they can't turn this off any easily anymore. They have to turn it off cards from hand. Um, but I think outside of limited, once you get battle worn, once you get, I think I say that there's only the legendary chess piece for ninja, for assassin rather, that has the battle worn keyword in this set. But outside of that, anything non-legendary and not literally that piece won't do it. But once you get outside of limited into CC, I think this one drops a hell of a lot because people will just be putting their used up grasp on there. They'll be putting their shock charmers on the combat chain or the snapdragon scalers and or both, and not caring, moving on because the arrow is not coming in for 7 anymore. It's coming in for 4.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been great if this was sort of card that was non-equipment, and then you had something like the plague, the spreading plague in Assassin to kind of follow up with and punish that. But yeah, this was so close to being playable for me. I think I'd give it a 2.
Yeah. Sadly, I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with 2.5 at the middle of the road, just because I think it's cool that it still works as it should do in draft, which is nice.
If this card had Brage and Beatdown text, it'd be so fucking good. It just it's so close to being great, and it really isn't.
Yeah,
I give it a 2. I give it a 2.
The sad thing is you can't even get around that with dominate, right? Because they just put their equipment in front of it. Like,
Yeah,
even when you dominate this, you still don't guarantee yourself the +3. Like, if they came out and said we made a mistake and said we meant to put that text on there, it wouldn't shock me because this card just feels kind of slightly unfinished.
Yeah.
And just kind of overlooked that it doesn't do this.
and it's got such a cool name, and Widowmaker deserves to be on such a good arrow.
It does, and it would be. I think it would be if it had that text as you'd expect it to have. If it worked as when you first read it, you'd think it works, but sadly not.
And the art's so good in it as well.
It is, yeah. It's spectacular.
And that's all we've got for the Ranger boys. Have you got any overall thoughts or closing remarks when it comes to Ranger?
I'm scared that I'm turning into a Ranger main.
I love it. So good to hear.
Words I never thought I'd hear him say.
Imagine me turning up to a competition in the UK when I played Guardian for so fucking long and I flip over Azalea. Imagine the look on people's faces. What the fuck is going on?
People are going to be incredibly confused, to be fair, mate.
But do we think this makes Azalea... Will Azalea finally get the living legend point that she's been craving?
Yeah,
I'll call it yes.
Quite possibly, yeah. She is feeling good. I mean, I haven't even been brewing long since this came out. I mean, we started this today, right, Liam? And all of a sudden, the deck is feeling a lot more consistent. It's feeling a lot better. I think she'll get something. I'm sure there's a lot more room for innovation in the deck as well.
George is going to win Antwerp, calling it.
Oh, that would be a dream.
Woo! I mean, he's not playing Ranger, but...
Yeah, exactly. I look forward to playing Oldham.
But no, I love what they've done with Ranger. I think the Blood Rot, I think arrows and buffs, the access to dominate, improving it with spire sniping. I think she's had some serious upgrades. Sorely needed ones, I might add. And I'm not sure how many of them actually help Lexi too much, which is probably quite a. I mean, obviously she's going to run infecting shock, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think lace and infecting shot are like so good that she might even consider running them. And boulder trap, I think, are probably the ones that jump out to me as being like the ones that might see play out outside of Azalea and Riptide. I do think that, and I know I'm biased on this one. I think Ranger is just an incredibly interesting class in this set. It feels very varied. Feels like it really supports the two different heroes well. I think it's the most interesting one to me, at least in the set.
Yeah, like I say, I think the only miss was the Skybound, Skyfire,
And the Widowmaker, yeah.
Widowmaker was just close. It was just I think so close yet so far, along with probably one of the most disappointing L's we've seen. But
yeah, the
it wouldn't be a
very
Ranger
sad.
set unless you got disappointing armor or a legendary headpiece. You have to have one or the other. Well, gentlemen, I think we think this is all the class cards now. We've done this is part 3, so we've only got one left to do, which we'll cover off with all the hybrid cards, the generics, because there's a couple of interesting pieces in there. And we'll give our overall review of the set. But any closing remarks, gentlemen, before we log off and tell people to do the like and subscribe bollocks?
No, not really. Just thank you for sticking with us through all the Ranger cards there. That was probably a bit of a bigger one. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Infecting shot, poggers.
Poggers, there we go.
Poggers infecting shot.
Well, anyone listening and watching, still, thank you very much, and we look forward to catching the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.